This is the MHFi podcast with Carl Jensen and Doug Cunnington. We have authentic conversations about the journey to Fi, health, happiness, and some very odd tangents. We interview Fi experts, side hustlers, people on their way to Fi, and those who have reached the other side. Join us every week, and if you want the show notes and links and all that other stuff, head over to milehfi.com.
Welcome to the MHFi podcast. My name is Carl Jensen. I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Doug Cunnington.
And we have a super special guest today, one of the OGs of the financial independence movement. Tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm the Mad Fientist, and I don't do much podcasting or blogging these days, but I still do a little bit at madfientist.com.
Yeah, we were wondering if you were still alive. We know, when is the last time you released any content whatsoever?
I think I just released a podcast episode a few months ago to celebrate my new British citizenship. So I had pre-pandemic, I had recorded an interview with Barney, the escape artist, who's a UK fire blogger. And so I recorded that way back in 2019, and I was going to release it when I got citizenship, but that process took a lot longer because of the pandemic. So I actually just released that, maybe a month ago or something. And that was the first time in a long time I'd released something. So it's been a while, but I wasn't the most prolific poster even in my heyday. So it just, when I feel like it, I put something out, but it's not too often.
So it's not quantity, it's quality. And since you have almost no quantity whatsoever, we expect all your shit to be super high quality whenever you do come out with something.
I know, exactly.
In 10 years from now, or whenever your next post or podcast is.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we met, Brandon? It's been almost 10 years.
Oh, what was it? Was it New Orleans?
It was St. Louis.
St. Louis. That's right. Yeah. My first FinCon.
Yeah. 2013. I remember meeting you, actually. I remember the exact moment. It was at the opening party at FinCon in St. Louis.
That's crazy. I didn't. That was so long ago. I can't remember. But yeah, the St. Louis was first, and then was it New Orleans? Because then we were friends by then.
Yeah, I have no clue. I think so. Maybe we rented that house.
Yeah, that weird mansion. That was awesome.
Yeah, almost 10 years. I remember that. I looked it up. The date was October 17th, 2013. So
no kidding. So yeah, we're nearing a decade of friendship. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, pretty cool. What have you been up to lately?
Oh,
besides not producing any content.
Yeah. So it was like, obviously with the pandemic, we were pretty locked down in Scotland. So 2020 was just all about work for me, and sort of living a childhood dream of writing and releasing an album, which I never thought I would actually be able to do. And so that was just, we were locked inside all the time and didn't do much fun stuff, obviously, because there was nothing we could do. So 2021 was like sort of like the reaction to that. So we just did so much fun stuff, which was really lucky, and we're thankful we were able to travel a little bit, and I was able to see my family. So actually this year this is our third trip back to the States, and I guess to make up for not seeing anybody during 2020. So we've just been really spending just a lot of quality time with family and friends, and trying to see as many people as we can this year. And now we're back to go on a big ski trip for my 40th birthday. So Joe was asking like how I wanted to spend my 40th, and I was like, well, ideally I'll be on a mountain somewhere. And thankfully she agreed to let us come and do like a 3-week trip through the Colorado Rockies. So here we are. We're seeing you guys and having a few beers at Weldworks and things like that. So it's been fun so far. But yeah, we'll probably head up the mountain today.
Man, that's a pretty epic birthday. I think for mine, I had a beer at Shoes and Brews like a mile away from here. So you kicked my ass as far as birthday celebrations.
Yeah, you got to dream big. I drove to Alaska, so mine was pretty big too.
Whoa.
It was like a 6-week thing. Not to upstage you, but
yeah, no,
I don't ski,
that totally upstaged me. That's cool. Yeah, no, I'd love to go to Alaska one day. I've never been, but yeah, I love mountains, so Alaska is definitely on the list.
Yeah, well, let's start with the interview, and I have to ask the stupid obligatory question that I've probably asked you before. I think I might have asked you this when I interviewed you for your own podcast, but how did you discover financial independence?
Yeah. So always been really interested in money, always good with money, saver. I couldn't wait to get a portfolio or to like have significant money to like invest one day and have my own portfolio and things like that. So it was 2010, 2011-ish. And I didn't even know what a blog was, to be honest, at this time. And so I stumbled upon getrichslowly.org, and I was like, oh, now I get what this is. This is just some guy named JD who's writing about money. So yeah, it's like it taught me what a blog was, but then it also led to, like probably the biggest discovery of my life. And that was when JD had done a book review on Early Retirement Extreme, written by Jacob Lund Fisker. And in that book review, he just talked about the basics of financial independence, really. And it's like, because up until that point, I think I was like most people, where retirement is an age, not a quantity of money in the bank. It was more like you just retire when you're 65 and that's what happens. So it was just mind blowing. So then I just obviously bought the book, read Early Retirement Extreme, followed Jacob, and then that eventually he passed the torch to Mr. Money Mustache around that same time, I think maybe early 2012. And Mr. Money Mustache was a software developer like me, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And it was around that time that I turned 30, and I was like, I wanted to start creating something, because my 20s were always all these great ideas that I had, but then I never did anything because I would always overanalyze them. And, by the time that I thought about all the contingencies and all the things that I had to put in place to make it happen, which none of them needed to happen, I would just talk myself out of it and think it was a stupid idea and then move on to something else. So anyway, my 30s, I was like, I just want to start something. And I was so excited about the idea of financial independence after reading Early Retirement Extreme for so long that I decided to start the Mad Fientist. And I was like, at the time, I thought I was going to become a better investor and come up with like investing strategies. And I figured having the need to put out content would make me take it more seriously to do the research that I thought could help me reach FI sooner. And so that's how it all started. But yeah, it's all JD Roth, Get Rich Slowly, and then that led to Early Retirement Extreme, and then obviously that changed everything.
And then did you have an interest in writing before that?
Mm-mm. No, not at all. And it's actually a super painful process for me even to this day. I'm getting slightly better where I don't like reread emails I send to people like 5,000 times. Just because the amount of emails that I receive is a lot more than I used to. So I'm at least getting better at that. But with posts, it's like pulling blood from a stone, which
that's hard.
Yeah, it's tough. So yeah, nope, never was a writer. And I still feel like I'm more like an academic writer. Like I read my stuff and I'm like, oh, this is just very academic sounding, but whatever. That's what I got. So yeah, it's.
Is it maybe like your technical background that brings that academic feel?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And okay. Yeah, I've definitely, writing academic papers and things in school. And I went back and got a master's at the same time I was starting the Mad Fientist, actually. So I'm sure that crept into it a little bit. But yeah, definitely more comfortable with spreadsheets and software and stuff like that, which is what I ended up building a lot of for Mad Fientist. So, and it's actually more of a focus now. So I'd say I write more code for Mad Fientist than I write words these days.
One thing I think of is I discovered financial independence the same way as you. I think I found Mr. Money Mustache or JD Roth. And the thing I wonder about is, what if I didn't find those people? How much longer would I have stayed at work? Because it really helps to have an example, someone, a pioneer, to do the thing first. And I wonder if I would have considered financial independence and stopping work early.
Well, it's interesting because around the same time, I was making good money at my job, and I was thinking, I was like, what do people do? Like, I don't want a big house. I don't want a fancy car. I hate cars. Like, I just want it to not break down so it can get me from A to B. I don't care what it looks like. So it was around this time I was like, I guess I just got to start buying like really nice guitars, or like start collecting up, like having a big wall of guitars or something like that, because I was like, I don't know what else I'm gonna do with it. So yeah, it's interesting to think about, like, had I not stumbled upon that, what I'm sure I would have still saved way more than the average person, but I guess I'd have more guitars.
Well, I like where you're going because I have started collecting guitars. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
Did that work out for you, by the my
Yeah.
Just buy guitars? Did you do that? Or?
No, I didn't do that actually. No, but I think I'm gonna start. Maybe. Well, now it's synthesizer, so I have started buying lots of synthesizers. But yeah, maybe a few more guitars in my future, I think.
Doug, I think Brandon just kind of threw you under the table. I mean, you're not supposed to buy guitars, or that's what he would have done with a suboptimal life. Just went out and a bunch of guitars, which is exactly what you've done.
I don't know if you would give yourself advice a couple years ago, would you say buy the synthesizers and guitars?
Yes, I would. So yeah, no.
Right.
So I think I did it wrong. My wife is on the she was coming from the spendy side of the equation, I guess, and then I was obviously super frugal naturally, and we've brought each other to a more healthy middle. So yeah, I should have bought the nicer synthesizer earlier. Yeah, maybe not need too many guitars, but yeah, no, I think I would have given myself that advice.
All right.
It's interesting to think about, because one thing I think about all the time is we have way more money than we ever planned. It's just worked out real well for us. And I try to think, like, what the hell should I do with this? We'll probably give it all away at some point, but what could I do now to increase my happiness? And there really isn't anything. And I'm so thankful for that I can't think of anything I want to buy. There's like nothing. I'm like, shit, maybe a drone. They had a nice one at Costco for like $400, but
no, it's a great position to be in, but I'm still trying to challenge myself. So, last year, like, we pretty much spent the same amount of money for the last, I don't know, 6-7 years, I would say. But last year I forced us to spend what the portfolio could produce at like 3.5% withdrawal rate, because that's the one that I would be comfortable with. So if we were living off the portfolio, which we're not, because Mad Fientist brings in income and Jill's still working part-time and things like that. So we haven't touched the portfolio, but just as an exercise, I was like, I forced myself to spend what 3.5% of the portfolio would be. And we didn't spend that much, even though I was really trying. But what it did was made me not care as much, which, as somebody who cares about money and like always is thinking about it, it made me more generous, and it made me less stressed on a day-to-day level. Like if something come up that we have to spend some money on it, like the year before, that would have pissed me off, and I was just stressed about it, even though the money doesn't matter. That money didn't matter. That amount didn't matter. Whereas when something like that happened last year, since I was forcing myself to spend this much and I wasn't succeeding, then when things came up, I was like, oh, well, that'll get us closer to spending that amount. And it didn't mean I was wasteful, because I can never waste money, and I never want to waste money, because yeah, exactly. Hopefully give a lot of it away at the, as we get older and things like that. But it was a really good exercise for me as a naturally overly frugal person to then sort of relax a little bit and, plan a trip like this. So like a 3-week, it's not going to be cheap up in the mountains for accommodation, I'm sure, but things like that. It was a really helpful exercise.
That's awesome. I've never heard that, but I need to tell my wife, because we battle a little bit on like what is an appropriate withdrawal rate, or how much do we need to save extra beyond that. So I don't know how that would look. I think it would be hard to spend that much money.
Yeah. It's like obviously a great predicament to be in, obviously, or especially during a pandemic when people were struggling and to make ends meet. So it was, obviously we very, very lucky to be able to do that. But it was a good exercise to not always, just to take the numbers out of the equation, because so much of my choices are made based on the numbers, and that's really not necessary anymore. So just giving me that buffer to be like, okay, well, you're going to need to spend more this year anyway. So maybe pick the meal that you really want, and not the cheapest one that sounds like it'll taste good, So.
Did you buy anything really ridiculous? Like what's memorable of that forced spending?
No, yeah. So no, it was just more like went out with family, just always be the first one with the credit card trying to pay, or out with beers with friends, just, buying the rounds and things like that. So that was the most like beneficial thing of that. It just felt like I was able to be a lot more generous, which was really nice. And this month I'm trying to spend what the portfolio would bring in, but then also what our actual income is. So like a no save month for the first time in a long time. That's gonna fail because I'm not even spending what the portfolio would produce. So, but that forced me to try we booked in premium economy on the way over, and then I used miles to upgrade to business class on the way back. So that's the most extravagant thing that this whole spending challenge has given us. So I'm excited for business class on the way back, because it'll be a fully lie flat bed to get back over to Scotland. And premium economy coming over was great because obviously Omicron's everywhere, and it was nice to have more space and be a bit less packed in there. So those are the two only things that would be considered extravagant, I think. The rest is just more a day-to-day, like just less stress and maybe extra coffees or lunches, which to be honest, that's an interesting thing that this whole thing has made me realize. Like, I have no self-control when it comes to food. And the only thing that was keeping me in check was my cheapness. And now that my cheapness isn't there, it's like, we'll be walking around town and it's like, okay, I'll get a croissant, and then, we might as well get a sandwich for lunch. And just like, so I need to develop more self-control, because I love food and drinks and things like that. So it's, that's the one downside is that my frugality is not keeping my gluttony in check, I guess.
Let's talk about the Mad Fientist a little bit more. When people ask me questions, I think there's one of your posts specifically that I've probably emailed to people more than anything else, and that is the how to access early retirement funds early. Very good article. We'll link to it in the show notes. But do you actually enjoy doing this research and reading IRS documents? And do you still do all this type of stuff because you're not as active now?
So I did used to do it because it was all selfish. I wanted to reach FI as quickly as possible, because I made the mistake of thinking that, FI was this magical finish line, that, everything that sucked about life pre-FI was going to just magically become amazing after FI. So I was racing there. So anything that I could do to help me get to FI quicker, it was really easy to do that research. That's why people would email me and say, can you write an article about like 529 plans or something? And I'm like, well, no, I don't have a kid, so I could give two shits about 529 plans right now. That's not going to help me get to FI quicker. And the same with interviewing people. Like, I only interviewed people that I really was interested in talking to and thought I could learn something from, which is, so it was all purely selfish. And so back then it was really easy to do that research and read the IRS documents, and sort of like, because I was just developing my own plan. But as you said, now it's not optimizing my finances isn't the main goal. It's now optimizing for happiness and for, other non-monetary things, which I still write about. So that's where a lot of my writings go in these days. And I'm not diving into the IRS documents as much, because it's not fun when you're not motivated as much as I was back then.
And you said you're coding more now, so you're creating tools, I take it. So what kind of tools do you have out there? Anything exciting on the horizon?
Yeah. So back when I started Mad Fientist, I also created the Mad Fientist Laboratory, because I read Your Money or Your Life, and in that book they say, it's good to plot your expenses, and then how much your portfolio could sustain spending wise, and then when those numbers cross, that means that you're FI. And I was like, oh, that sounds really cool, but I'm not going to get a piece of graph paper and stick it to my wall. Like, the book was written in the 90s, and so they suggested just drawing it out. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. I was like, I'll build a tool to allow people to do that. So I created the FI lab, and I've just been adding to that over the years, and I'm trying to. I just a few weeks ago was making some updates just some more maintenance things. But I realized how much I'd missed coding. So then I was like, well, I think I'm going to, maybe take the lab to another level. And I also have the credit card search tool I built because I was really into travel hacking and still am. So it's a way to, figure out the best card to get for different types of miles. So I know I live in the UK, so BA miles are very valuable to me. So I can go into the app and click BA, and it'll show me all the best miles using all the transfer ratios, because like Chase points transfer at a different ratio to Amex points, and some of them don't transfer to all the different airlines. And I just wanted an easy way to be like, I just want BA miles, and maybe the BA card's not the best option for me. So I just want to find the best sign-up bonus for BA, and that's what I built. So, but yeah, so the credit card search tool is still out there, but the lab is what I've been working on recently, and that's just to scratch my coding itch, really, because I dove in for a couple weeks, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much I missed this. So yeah, hopefully taking the Fi laboratory to the next level over the next year.
Awesome. So you're one of the Fire originals. You've been following this whole thing for almost a decade. How have you seen it evolve, and where do you think it's going? Yeah,
it exploded in, I guess, 2018. Something happened, and just the mainstream media attention was huge, and it just seemed like it exploded into popular culture. And then it seems like maybe over the last 2 years, it's decreased a little bit in that sense, I guess, like the mainstream media exposure sense. But I don't know where it goes, because I sort of feel like I haven't been integrated into the whole scene recently, because I've been so focused on the music stuff. So I'm not exactly, I don't have my finger on the Fi pulse as much anymore. I put out a post, once every 3 to 6 months, and then I disappear again. So I'm not exactly sure where it goes. But it does seem like, it's not as in the mainstream media culture or mainstream media publications as much. What do you guys think? Because you guys have your finger on the pulse a bit more than I do.
One thought I had about Fire recently is it's kind of a BandAid to life, and I think it's kind of a reaction to us living incorrectly, not pursuing happiness, just going whole hog on our jobs. And it seems like that's kind of changed. Now the gig economy is a lot more popular, and a lot of people work for shorter time. And like our friends, Steve and Lauren from, what's their blog, Doug?
Trip of a Lifestyle.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at here is, I think even if people don't know about Fire, they're living a happier life, and perhaps there's less of a need for it because people are figuring shit out. Like, I don't need to work till whatever. I can take 6 months off and go hike, backpack Southeast Asia where was I going with that?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, because I didn't think about how the pandemic especially would probably, I know, talking to a lot of people, it seems like it reset priorities. Like, they couldn't believe their lives before COVID were so busy and full of stuff that they didn't really enjoy doing, and now it gave them a chance to just stay at home with the family more, or see close friends more, and slow down a bit. So yeah, you're probably right. And then the great resignation and all that stuff, I guess, is so maybe you're right, society's changing a bit and realizing some of the stuff that Fire's been talking about for a long time is actually legit, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very hard to find workers now. And for a while, everyone was afraid of automation, and there's not going to be any jobs the robots are going to take them. And now that's kind of turned on its head, at least temporarily. Now we can't find anyone to work. Now it would be pretty freaking good to have robots to make hamburgers or whatever. Maybe a Tesla bot will come through and rescue us. I was driving through Moab, and we went past the McDonald's, and they had a thing on the sign. They said $19 an hour to work at McDonald's. And I did the math. So that's like about $38,000 a year. And I'm like, wow, shit, that's how much I made at my first job after going to college. And I had a good job with computers. And I know it's been 20 years in inflation and all that, but holy shit.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Man. And you get to live in Moab.
Yeah.
So it's not bad.
Not bad.
And just talking about jobs and stuff, Brandon, do you think you could ever go back to a job? Would you be able to handle that sort of structure?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I feel like I'm unhireable at this stage just because, yeah, it would be tough to have to answer to somebody again. I've contemplated it, to learn new skills and things, but I think I'd maybe volunteer just so I wouldn't have to answer to anybody. But maybe there is a second career in me somewhere if there's something like, yeah, especially if like the space stuff gets even more exciting. It's like maybe go back to school for something, astrophysics or something that would be super interesting to learn, but then could land a seat in maybe SpaceX's mission control for the Mars mission in 20 years or something. That would in that scenario potentially something it would have to really interest me, but it would be real tough to answer to somebody again.
Yeah, just being able to shape your day is so important. I couldn't imagine it either. And I'm curious, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but when you were working on your album and music, it sounded like for almost a year, but probably a lifetime, right? But like, how did you structure your day? Did you have deadlines? Did you need to set up checkpoints along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the big change, because like I never believed I could do it. I still don't really believe I did it, because I'm like, it was a lifelong struggle, because it was something I always wanted to do, and I just felt that if I tried and failed, then I would lose the dream. So I just never tried. It was always tomorrow's goal to do that, because today was way too scary to try. But I realized like, I was already in my late 30s, and I was like, yeah, this is weird. It seems like a weird goal to still have. I must really want to do it, but I haven't done anything. So when the pandemic happened and we were locked inside, I was like, well, I have no excuses now. So this is time to put up or shut up. So I didn't do any Mad Fientist stuff. I was like, I'm going to focus on this completely and see if I can actually do it. And the only goal of every day was just to put my butt in that chair and sit there and make progress. And some days, I felt like I wasn't doing anything really productive, and other days were better, but I just had to be in that chair. And I set myself the target of 25 hours a week, which seemed reasonable, but was actually really tough, because like, when you're doing something that's just like soul destroying, because you have no confidence and you're just really sad that you're not better, and it's tough to sit there for 5 hours a day, which is what I tried to do. And so that was it. That was the only thing I had to do, was sit there for 5 hours a day. And obviously I had like tasks that I thought would help me get better and learn the skills that I needed to actually write the album. But really it was just the sit there for 5 hours a day, 25 hours a week, and just do it as long as it takes. And thankfully that worked. And slowly like an idea would come up, and I'd be like, well, that sounds actually pretty cool. And then I'd develop that. And then, there was obviously still really tough times. Like every new thing I had to do was just like this insurmountable mountain to climb. But since I was actually putting in the time, then I actually was making progress. So that was huge for me to realize like, okay, it's not magic. It's not, my idols obviously look like they have superpowers, but really just do it long enough and trust your ears. And then it's like, okay, you make some progress.
How important was it to like just focus on that? Because you mentioned you ignored all Mad Fientist stuff. So how important was it to just ignore it for a little while?
That was super important, because like, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm procrastinating, that's like, that's when I have something really difficult to do, then all my other non-difficult stuff gets done. So it's like, it's the most procrastinating on something hard is super great for, having the rest of my life in check. Cause it's like, I sit down to do the really hard thing, and then I'm like, oh, it's too hard. So I'm going to actually reply to these emails that I've been putting off. And then I'm going to write this other blog post that I've been putting off. So the fact that I swept all of that away, and it's like, no, you're not, none of that's important. You're not doing anything. You're not replying to emails. You're not writing new posts, or you're not doing any of that. You're just sitting in that chair for 5 hours a day. That was key to making progress.
Did you have a breakthrough in the middle of that? You said you lack confidence, which surprised me because I've seen your guitar play and I've seen you play that classical guitar piece. And I thought you were very good, at least with the guitar. I guess I've never heard you play the synthesizer except on your album. Was there a breakthrough when you thought, okay, this is going to work. I'm actually going to make it?
Yeah. So first, since I didn't have the confidence to do something myself, I was like, okay, so let me just think of the style of music. Like I grew up with like really weird experimental indie rock, because like I loved just like math rock and things like that sound out of tune and just are really experimental in ways, and like noise rock and things like that. So I really wanted to make sort of that kind of music. So I was like, well, what's like the type of music that I want to make? And a band I really liked growing up was Sonic Youth. It's a guitar band, and they're like noise rock, experimental rock. And I was like, I love the sound of Sonic Youth, but I love synthesizers. So it'd be sort of like a combination of that. It's like, like a synthesizer version of Sonic Youth almost. And I was like, well, I was really struggling to make any progress, but I was like, all right, well, why don't I just cover a Sonic Youth song, but use synthesizers and do it in a way that, you know, I want my album to sound. So that was the first step. And that was easier because I wasn't constantly judging myself like, oh, this song sucks. I'm going to throw it away. Because I knew the song was great. It was a song called Tokyo Eye that I really liked. And I was like, the song's great. So I just need to make it sound great in my own style. And that really was a breakthrough, because then I could just listen for the first time, instead of just always judging and like overanalyzing everything. I could just simply listen, and I was like, oh, that actually sounds pretty cool. And that's what I was going for. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I just pulled the whole thing out. Here, I'll just hold it like this. We're good. This is good. We're fine. So,
are you sure we can get that back up?
It's fine. It's fine, because we'll have to unscrew everything. Okay. But yeah, so that was a huge breakthrough. And then messing around with that ended up leading to just like one little riff, synthesizer riff. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then that ended up becoming my first original song. And then from there, my confidence grew, and it was just putting in the time and like actually allowing those things to happen. I wasn't, I guess before that I was imagining like a Paul McCartney Blackbird moment where he just dreams it and then there it is the next morning, which obviously that's never going to happen if you're not writing as many songs as Paul McCartney has. So it's actually just trying stuff, listening to it, and that was huge, because I was like, oh, it's not magic. It's just work, and I could definitely put in the work. So that was really motivating.
Awesome. Are you ever going to come out with an album, Doug? Or?
No, I don't think so. Not in the plans at all. No.
Is there anything you would have done differently on your journey to FI, financial independence? I'm thinking of, this question was inspired by one of your stories. I think it was the expensive restaurant in Switzerland, maybe. Is that correct? Am I remembering it right?
Yeah,
the bathroom incident?
Yeah. So I studied abroad in Scotland and met my now wife halfway through that year. And then we stayed together for 6 months, but then I had to go back to the States to graduate or do my senior year. So we had a year apart, and I came to meet her. She came over to the States for Thanksgiving. I think I went to Scotland for Christmas. And then, we met in neutral Switzerland in April or something. And it was the cheapest flight. Like I just looked all over Europe, and that was the cheapest flight. And little did I know, Switzerland's a really expensive country. So here we were, almost a year into being apart and already having 2 trips that we had done. And I was a broke college kid, and here we are in Switzerland. We go into this restaurant, and they didn't give us tap water to begin with. So, that obviously was terrible, because, 3 or 4 euros for a bottle of water that's way smaller than that. And And then it was a fondue place, and we just wanted to share fondue, but they wouldn't let us. They wouldn't let us. So we had to get a fondue each, which were super expensive. And I drank our tiny little bottle of water, but I was so thirsty because it was just like salty cheese and bread. And so this was the low point of my frugality. I didn't tell Jill. I just kept disappearing to the bathroom, and I would go and just stick my head under the bathroom spigot and just drink as much water as I could, and then go back to the nice fancy dinner table. And so that was that was a low point in my frugality. But if I were to do anything different on my path to financial independence, I would have taken it a bit easier. I wouldn't have been so hardcore about it, because there was a couple years when I was like really, really going for it that, we just deprived ourselves of everything, and neither of us were happy. And like I was so focused on that end goal that, present happiness wasn't even in my thoughts. And it wasn't a good couple of years. So I would have just taken it easier. And it's not a race. It's you need to learn about yourself on the journey, because being able to do anything is really weird once you hit FI. And like, if you have no idea what you're going to do when you hit that, it's tough. So I don't think people should race there. Just a gradual like improvement of your life, and a dialing in of your spending that, you're optimizing each dollar for your happiness and things like that. And that's something that you have to learn over time, I think. So I would have slowed down. I wouldn't have raced as quickly as I did to get there. And I would have, learned how to use money to enjoy ourselves a bit more.
And what are maybe a couple things that are a priority where you're like, I do like to spend money on that? You did mention you love eating and food and drinks and stuff like that. So you can talk about that, or if there's any others too.
Yeah, no, that's the main one. Like, it's not like we like fancy meals where it's like a Michelin star. Well, those are fun every once in a while. But yeah, just day to day, like going out and getting like a nice craft beer at WeldWorks, or like a nice sandwich somewhere. Those things, just add to my happiness so much. So, so definitely things like that. But then also buying quality stuff, I think, has been a huge shift. I would always buy the cheapest thing that get the job done. Whereas now, we talked about synthesizers a lot, like investing in like a nice Moog synthesizer that is probably going to hold its value or increase in value makes way more sense than, just getting a cheap knockoff thing that's going to probably break in a year. Things like that, investing in quality, because you get to enjoy the quality the whole time. And then, like I said, you may end up with an investment at the end of the day that you've got to enjoy for a decade or two.
Yeah, food is funny. I think about that often. We went to a Michelin restaurant once. It was in Chicago, and it was pretty good. But the thought I had while we were there, and I'm kind of trashy, I'll say that before I say this next statement, but I was eating this food. I'm like, this is pretty good, but I enjoy Taco Bell like 90% as much as this Michelin restaurant.
What's your go-to order at Taco Bell? You talk about it pretty often.
I do. I'm pretty excited, Doug, because I just read that they're bringing the Mexican pizza back, and that was always one of my favorites. So,
wow.
Yeah. I like their breakfast too. They've got their crunch wrap. They put eggs and bacon in there. I don't go there that often. I don't want to die early or anything like that. So maybe once a month, but yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and that's the fun part about like doing these experiments to spend more. Because we had done this after hitting FI. I ended up working for a couple of years because I had a work from home situation before, this pre-pandemic, but so it wasn't as widespread. But yeah, I had a work from home situation, and I had a great job. It was a nice. I love coding, like I said, so I just stayed on for a couple of years, and we tried to push our spending a bit that year as well. And yeah, you learn these things. You learn that more vacations aren't always better, because a lot of the fun of a vacation is looking forward to it and planning it and really getting to enjoy it as a contrast to your normal life. But when, we did a around the world trip for 3 months, and like by month 3, the temple that we were looking at was like, okay, another temple. And, the food we were eating was just normal food now, because we'd been there for so long. And yeah, you start to realize that, in going out to eat, like that year we went out to eat a ton, but it lost the specialness of it. It's like, I think going out to eat on a Friday night for a nice dinner or just a normal restaurant meal, is better than going out 7 days a week and being like, oh geez, I feel disgusting because this isn't as healthy as my cooking and I'm not actually enjoying the experience as much. So, and then to go back to the Michelin star thing, like it's fun to do that every once in a while as a treat and a breakaway from, whatever normal Taco Bell. But, a lot of times the price that you pay is not, it doesn't cover the happiness doesn't exceed, the price, because we did that too. When we were locked down, since Jill we couldn't do anything for my birthday or anything. She just bought me a nice bottle of wine that we would have never spent that much on. I think it was like 90 pounds or something, which for one bottle of wine, it's like, wow, geez, it better be amazing. And there's no way it was 8 times as good as the normal bottles of wine that we have every once in a while. So then we went back a few months later and we bought like a $50, 50-pound bottle, which is still way more than we would spend. And that wasn't, 5 times as good as the one that we normally have and stuff like that. So yeah, it's fun to test these things, but yeah, as you've found with your Michelin meal, that extra 10% of enjoyment over Taco Bell was not worth the extra whatever 200 times the amount that you had to spend on it.
I think it was more like 20x, but that's still a lot. 20x for a 10% improvement is not worth it.
Taco Bell's good. It's pretty good. They do it right. Or that's another place, isn't it? I don't know. I don't know their tagline.
Yeah, I think I'm looking through our outline here, and we've already answered a lot of these questions in the natural course of conversation. So I'm going to skip down to this one, Doug. And you kind of hinted at this a while ago. I like what you said about how you get closer to FI shouldn't be a big change. You should gradually ramp up to it and change your life accordingly. But what advice do you give to people who don't do that? Like me and probably you, it was kind of an all or nothing thing. We were super frugal, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a good place. How do you flip the switch and tell yourself that it's okay to actually spend money on something if you think it's going to make you happy?
Yeah, that's real tough. I'm sure it's the same with you. Like, it's not natural. Because if I can get something for $1, why would I spend $2 on it? It's really tough. And as a lifelong frugal person, it's like deprogramming, 40 years of my natural inclination. So yeah, there's been a few things that have helped. Like I said, forcing myself to spend more last year, or trying to. And I still, like I said, I didn't succeed, but that was huge in just making me not care about money. The second thing is allowing myself to spend a lot more on things that are investments, because that tricks me into, like the synthesizer, for example, like a nice Moog synthesizer, that could be $2,000. So spending $2,000 on a musical instrument seems crazy to me. But when I reframe it in my mind, like, well, actually, this is potentially an investment. So that's been another way I've tricked myself into buying something that's maybe a bit more extravagant than I would have otherwise. Let's see what else, because there's been a few things that I've done over the last year that have really helped. I talked to Ramit from I Will Teach You to Be Rich, and it was that conversation that sort of pushed me into learning how to try to enjoy the money that we've saved up and not just keep it locked away in the bank for the next 40 years. But it's tough. How about you? Like, because I know we're very similar as far as being naturally frugal.
Yeah, one thing I've realized about myself recently is it's not really about the money. It's about being efficient. And like, if I'm efficient in every part of my life. If I have to go somewhere in a car, I think of the best way to get there, and I also think of every other place I might have to go that's along the way.
Same.
Yeah. And I think about this all the time. So it's not really about money. It's about using money efficiently and not being wasteful with it. Like, I can't stand when people throw out food either. That just drives me nuts. Like, dude, you've got leftovers. They'll stick it in a box and you can take it home and have it for lunch tomorrow. So if I continue thinking about everything that way, So I'll back up a second. One thing I used to do is spend like hours looking for hotels and flights, and sometimes I'd even come back like a week later and see if the flight was cheaper. And I don't know what I could do about it at that point. But then I realized you might be using money efficiently, but you're not using your time efficiently. So now what I'll do, I'll give myself like 15 minutes to go find the hotel. And it's not going to make that much difference. Like maybe if I would have done a little bit more research, I could have saved like an additional $50, but it's not worth my time. My time is more valuable than spending hours on the internet looking at all these stupid websites trying to find the best deal. So that's one hack for me, just understanding that your time is super valuable.
That's a great point. And I do the same thing. I check the flight after the fact just to learn if I screwed up and should do it differently the next time. But old habits die hard.
And I have one to add in there, and we probably have like anchor points for what we might spend on Supreme nachos at Taco Bell, for example, just random example. And it might be from when we were in college and we were like, you can get a hamburger for 29 cents or whatever. I remember that deal at McDonald's in college. And that is the anchor point, but now shit's more expensive and we have more money. You actually can spend a little bit more, even though you like the Taco Bell. You can spend more and maybe get like extra guac or whatever on there. But the point is, we can spend a little bit more. And I guess, it's the point you're making too, Brandon, where you're like, well, I could get this cheaper synthesizer or a more expensive one. And it's so hard to do. It's all psychological, but now you could spend a little bit more and be a little bit happier, save a little time maybe, and it won't make a difference at all to your withdrawal rate or how much money you have in the short term or long term.
That's exactly it. So that was one of the big things that the realizations I had last year was my mindset is definitely still 20-year college student. Like I have nothing has changed with with thoughts to money. And that was a huge exercise for me. So to like $10 as a college kid, like, $10 was worth worrying about. And like, I wouldn't want to get a $10 fine or, you know what I mean? So like $10 was meaningful. And I still have I still apply that same amount of meaning to $10 today. So what I did was I calculated based on my net worth in college, how much that $10 is actually worth today for me. So the amount that I cared about $10 as a student is now hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So it's like, wow, here I am, stressing about a $10 expense when really, and then I went the other way. So like what that would have been for me as a college student would be like a penny or two or a nickel or something, you know what I mean? So that really helped my mindset because it was like, okay, I should treat that $10 as, a couple pennies in my head, not the $10 that I still feel like that is worth to me. So that was huge for that because then that just frees me up for like, considering a $100, a couple $100 expense. It's like, okay, would I have stressed about, $10 back in the day or whatever? And I would have, known that was valuable and I wouldn't want to waste it, but I wouldn't have, stressed or thought for 40 minutes to try to like reduce that in any way. So thank you for saying that because that was a huge exercise. After talking to Ramit and trying to like actually internalize some of the stuff that he had said. And, and I still do that today. So it's, I would just calculate and just be like, okay, this is going to be an extra $500, but then in the grand scheme of my college brain, that's equivalent to not very much. So,
wow, I need to run that calculation because I think I'm still skewed pretty far off. Yeah, what do you think?
I don't know. I want to run this calculation too. This would be a good enhancement to the your money calculator, the
Fi Lab. That's a good point. Yeah. You enter your, where you think your brain is stuck as far as money. So mine's 20. And then you would think like, all right, what's like a meaningful amount of money for me? That was $10 back in the day. Like, if we went out to dinner or lunch, like, and it came to $10, I'd be like, that was an expensive lunch. Yep. And then it'll spit out what that is equivalent to today. And that's a great call. I think I will add that to the Fi Laboratory.
You could link to this episode for the full explanation.
Absolutely.
Where are we at here?
What does your daily life look like now?
Yeah, so 2020 was all work. 2021's been all fun. My 2019 was like a balance between the two, and that's the ideal. So something I realized after reaching Fi is that I love routine, which was a big surprise because had you told me, I'd have all the freedom in the world to do anything, and here I would be sticking to a really strict routine, I would have said you were crazy, but it's the only way I can really get all the stuff done I want to get done. So yeah, with the pandemic, obviously that screwed up everything as far as that was concerned. So ideally it would be, maybe 9 months in Scotland and then 3 months traveling to the States to see my family or traveling for fun other places. And then when I'm at home, it's a very strict routine of, I'm really productive in the morning and I realize I'm not productive at all in the afternoon. So the ideal would be wake up naturally, which I think is still the best part of Fi. Like in Scotland, it's very dark in the winter. So somehow my body just wakes up like 8 hours after I went to sleep naturally, like on the dot. So it's like, it'll be pitch black out and I'm like, I know it's 7:05 right now. And I'll look and it's like literally 7:05. So I still think that's one of the best parts. So I'd wake up naturally. I know all the productivity people say, don't check your email or don't read news or anything, but I like having just a cup of tea and getting all that stuff out of my system, like seeing what the emails say and then reading some news or whatever, just for a little bit. But then I go and make my cup of coffee, and then that's when I sit down and get either music stuff done or maybe Mad Fientist stuff done if I have anything to do or want to do, and do that all morning. I've been doing intermittent fasting more so just because I sort of was doing that before I knew that was a thing, and it just fits my, I guess, lifestyle and body, and it's one less meal to worry about. So work as much as I could, make some breakfast, and then go to the gym back when I was able to go to gyms, which I haven't done that either. So, and then come back in the afternoon and, get the stuff done that doesn't take too much energy, because by then I'm tapped out for mental and motivation and willpower. So, do emails and stuff like that, and then cook a nice dinner with Jill, and then maybe watch something on Netflix, and then go to bed. I had a cutoff of 10 o'clock for screens, and then that made me read a lot more because I was never tired to go to bed at 10. But it would at least make me read more books. So then go read in bed for an hour, and then usually in bed by 11. I loved it. I loved it so much. So that was like my pre-pandemic routine, and then sprinkle in with a few vacations or coming to the States, and then it makes those feel super special. And then I know that, 9 out of 12 months of my year, I'm being really healthy and being really active and things like that. And then I can use those other 3 months to really just have fun and see people and not worry about it. So that was my perfect routine, which I'm hoping to get back into. We're hoping to buy a house so then I can build a home gym if, pandemics aren't making it too super exciting to go in with a big room of sweaty, panting people. So I'm hoping to get back to that once we buy a house. So that's my ideal early retirement day, I guess. And yeah, I loved it. And I loved the routine of it.
Awesome. Have you read the book Liftoff about SpaceX?
No.
Oh, you should totally read that. It pretty much covers the first 4 launches, and even though you know how it ends, it's a page turner, man.
That's awesome.
It's only like 200 pages long. You probably won't want to work for SpaceX or Elon Musk
really?
after you read the book, but it'd be an awesome job if you're like 20 and had absolutely no life whatsoever, no life, no girlfriend, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Other than that, it seems.
All right, well, I'll add it to my reading list.
Yeah.
I got a whole list of stuff that I try to get all the books because that one sounds perfect. I I read his his biography. I think it was. It wasn't his autobiography, and that was fascinating. So, and I know how close they came to failing in those first. Well, the first 3 launches blew up, right?
Correct.
And they needed the 4th one or was it the 5th one they needed to succeed?
It was the 4th one.
The 4th one.
They were just about out of money.
Yeah.
If that one wouldn't have succeeded.
So I'll definitely read that because that sounds right up my alley.
And for your like work week is about 20, 25 hours, like kind of ideal for you? Is that...
Oh yeah, but it was for the music stuff. And yeah, I probably, like I said, I'm probably only productive in the mornings. I don't take weekends off or anything. It's like my routine. I like doing it 7 days, and that's what I eventually got to. I was trying to do 5 hours a day, and that was way too much. So I just split the 25 hours up into the full 7 days because I like just doing the same thing every day because I really enjoy my routine. So, but like I said, I'm not really doing anything too productive in the afternoons because I've lost all willpower or motivation. So yeah, I guess I get 25 hours worth of something productive done a week, hopefully, if I'm lucky.
Nice.
Are you still working on music?
So I haven't had a studio. So we thought we were going to buy a house earlier this year, and we haven't found one. So we've been just moving around a lot. So like I said, we were in the States 3 times this year just because we've been in such limbo. So I was like, well, if we're going to be in limbo, we might as well just be in the States seeing some of my family. So we actually moved out of our long-term Edinburgh rental in April, and we've just been like Airbnb-ing it. So it's been a really disruptive time for getting any sort of music stuff done because all my music equipment is in my in-laws' attic. So
oh man, it probably kills your routine too, right?
Oh yeah, the routine's gone. So that's why I'm talking about it so fondly because I've missed it. So the first thing we need to do is find a house to buy. So we're going back to Scotland in the early February, and we're hoping that more stuff's going to start coming on the market in the spring, obviously. So, and then straight back into my routine, building the studio. That's what I just said to Jill today. We went to Michael's studio, and I was like, "We're building this as soon as we buy a house. This is what we're building." So,
nice. That's awesome. Should we wrap it up? Last question. Yeah. What activities make you lose track of time?
Coding. So we were talking about how I missed it. I don't think I even blink because after not coding for so long, I stepped away and I was like, I don't think I blinked or something because my eyes are burning like crazy and like my whole body felt different. So I must have been in the flow state for the first time in a while. So that does. I guess when I'm getting into the more technical side of the music stuff, I do. When I'm just like actually mixing or trying to like fix a problem with the sound or something like that, I would say I do. Not so much when I'm writing because I'm just, it's just still so hard for me. But coding definitely. And like I said, that was a surprise. I was like, wow, because I remember that for my job, I would have those sort of like, just dry eyes and like, or like, I guess just keep getting closer to the screen because I'm getting so into what I'm trying to fix or solve. So that's probably my main one.
Cool. Nice. Well, this has been so awesome, Brandon. Really appreciate you taking the time today. And you're a true pro holding the microphone by hand. It's a shoddy workmanship around here. So it looks nice, but it just falls apart.
No, it looks great. Yeah, no, and it's a very nice setup. This is way more professional than what I've been working with for the last 10 years. So you guys are doing great. And it's an honor to be here. Thank you for asking me. And it's nice to be on your show after you've done so much on my show, Carl. You and Mindy are, you've co-hosted it, you've hosted it, you've been guests. So, it's an honor to be on your show. So thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Thanks so much for being here. And,
we'll link up for all your stuff. Is there anywhere else that people should check out? You want to plug your album? Where can we get that?
Yeah, sure. Go to madfientist.com/album and it's, you can find out the information there. Because I've decided to keep these alter egos separate for some reason, so I'll just continue to do that. But yeah, the actual information's all on madfientist.com/album, and it's weird, experimental electro pop that I loved growing up. But yeah, it's not going to be on the top 40 anytime soon.
Cool. Well, we'll check it out, and thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the show. That was the MHFi podcast, and I'm Doug Cunnington, the balder host, and Carl Jensen is the cool, sexy one. If you dig the show, please do 3 things for us. Number 1, tell a friend, a family member, an enemy about the show. We really don't care who you tell. Maybe forward them a specific show that you know that they will like. It's the single most helpful thing that you can do to spread the word. It's like giving us a virtual high five, and actually we don't give high fives in person, so the virtual kind's pretty good. And more importantly, your friend or family member or even your enemy will appreciate the fact that you were thinking of them. Number 2, make sure you're following or subscribed on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, whatever you're using, and that way you won't miss a show. And number 3, please leave us a rating and review. We read them on the show occasionally, and you might hear yours out there on an upcoming episode. Quick disclaimer, this show is not financial or legal advice. I'd actually be surprised if it sounded like it. It's really just for entertainment, and that's at least what we're hoping for. But seriously, get advice from professionals. Carl and I are just 2 guys with microphones that sit in my basement and talk. So we'll catch y'all next week. Yeah. You said you haven't recorded in a while, so when was the last time you released a show?
Oh, geez. I think I released one fairly recently, but it was recorded way back in 2019. And then the one before that was an episode that's Gory from the Bogleheads. He had done something. So I actually haven't, actually sat down and recorded a new interview, and I can't even remember one.
That's
been
crazy.
a long time.
So you don't have any kind of regular schedule? It's just whenever you feel it?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think the first year I started, I did maybe 3, and they were like 3 to 6 months apart. And then second year, I think I ramped it up to 5 episodes. Or yeah, it's abysmal. I think. Well, it's almost. This is 10 years, by the way, that I first interviewed Pete.
Wow.
May of 2012. was the first interview, so that's 10 years, and I still think I only have 60 episodes or something, so yeah, not very prolific.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, good to see you're not letting it consume your life or consume any amount of time for that matter.
No, definitely not. Yeah, there's like I said, I can't remember the last time I did a proper episode where I had to say, do you want to come on my show and do an interview? So yeah, it's been a while.
Very good. And let's see, I just need to make sure you talk a little bit, Carl. So what were you guys drinking yesterday?
We went to WeldWorks, so we had lots of your favorite, Doug, hazy IPAs.
Yeah, and I do like hazy IPAs, and I made the mistake of telling Carl I've had enough of these fucking hazy IPAs. Every place they have 3 or 4 of them. I'm like, all right, I got it. You guys like hazy IPAs? Can you make a clear one too?
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about the hazies you're in?
I'm in. Yeah. So we lived in Vermont, and that was I was never really a big IPA fan up until that point, and then started drinking Heady Toppers. We would go up to Waterbury and get a big crate of them, and then I was just obsessed. And then when we left Vermont, I was super sad to not have hazies. So then once the whole explosion started happening, and I could get them over in Scotland, it was very exciting. So I'm still all in. And WeldWorks was great. Juicy Bits. Yeah,
very good. Well, that's the original, the Heady Topper. I mean,
that was the one that changed everything. And same with cans. I feel like they must have been one of the first to do those big cans.
Yeah, I think so. And we were there in 2014, and we're able to get some Heady Topper. I'm from Atlanta originally, so we were up there, and it was a thing we had to make sure we got. So.
Yes, so good. But I've had it since, and it's just amazing what the other breweries have done in the meantime. They just taken it to a whole other level. So it's still good, but there's some nicer stuff out there.